Hello, welcome back. It's Empire of the Cop Insider, and we've got Steve Kay here with us today from Football Transfers and the Transfer Exchange Show. Steve, how are you doing? It's lovely to have you here on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Farrell. It's good to be on the other side of the screen for a change. You know, it's good to when you come on ours. So yeah, it's nice, mate. Thanks for having us on. It's good to be here and talk a little bit about Ryan Gravenberch.
No, absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on, and a pleasure to talk about the man who seems to be garnering so much attention from a Liverpool perspective and, of course, a Manchester United perspective, reportedly. But we won't talk about them. It's all about Liverpool.
No, that's not.
Inside. I mean, Steve, it seems that you were ahead of the curve on this one. You were reporting on this story as far back as June, saying that Gravenberch would jump at the chance to join Liverpool and join Jurgen Klopp at Anfield this summer. Could you just tell us a bit about this story and what you've heard and where you feel Liverpool currently stand with regard to this transfer?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Ryan Gravenberch is a player that Jurgen Klopp has wanted to bring to Anfield now for quite a while now. I was first made aware of Liverpool's interest back in March, actually. That was like very fleeting sort of interest, and there wasn't much there. But then again in June, I was told that he was high on the list, and I don't remember a few of midfielders. And at the time, Liverpool were looking at about 5 or 6 players on that list, with Latvia being one, Casado and Arabat, and a couple more on top of that as well. But Ryan Gravenberch I was told, was very high on that list, quite a bit higher than probably what was being reported. There was quite a few players that would seem to be put in above Gravenberch in the chances of Liverpool signing, but there was a reason for that, as I'll explain as we go on a little bit further here. Yes, very, very high on Klopp's list. Unfortunately, at the time in June, it was more or less instantly Liverpool were told by Bayern that he wasn't for sale. We know at the time that Gravenberch would absolutely, you already mentioned, would have jumped at the chance to play for Liverpool. Klopp, as I've already said, is an absolute massive fan. Been a big fan of him for a long time. He's regarded as one of the brightest midfield prospects in European football. I've watched him quite extensively for a while now, and he's an excellent player. When Bayern bought him at Ajax, he was looked upon as one of the brightest prospects in European football. But since he's gone to Bayern, he's like his prospects there have stalled. He's struggled for game time, and clubs looking at him. He's a quality footballer, and he would fit perfectly into that midfield of Liverpool. I mean, for me, he really is a high quality. He plays above his 21 years. He reminds me very similar to, you look at someone similar age, maybe a different position, someone like Jurrien Timber. He's young, but when I can just imagine him being at Liverpool, being signed, he'll come on that pitch and he's got the same attitude as Jurrien Timber. Fantastic on the ball. He can do so much with it, but the attitude, I think, is something that Klopp would have noticed. He's already, at 21, he's a Netherlands international. He would be an excellent addition to the squad. He would fit into Liverpool's, I think, perfectly. I mean, he has already got his countrymen there at the club. Cody Gakpo, Virgil van Dijk, who I think would probably make him fit in, very, very well indeed. I mean, make no mistake, Liverpool wants to sign for Liverpool, and Bayern would now, which is the good thing, is that you ask, where are they now? Now we're in a situation where Bayern are willing to sell His contract, look, it runs out in 2027. So I expect a fee of around 45 million, 50 million euro. And also Bayern would need to bring in a replacement. But look, talks are continuing. I've been told, the latest I have been told is that there will be more talks over the weekend. Liverpool will want to get this tied up quick, as there's only 7 days left in the transfer window. But look, Gravenberch's career at Bayern doesn't seem to be going nowhere. He's been told now that they would sell. Gravenberch wants to leave. They've got the Euros in 2024 in June. In that Liverpool midfield, I think he'd be a star. And I mean, even as a rival support, I'll be really looking forward to seeing him in the Premier League.
No. I mean, what you're talking about, it has been sort of corroborated by Christian Falk this morning on Quarter Side. He's talking about what you mentioned. He's fallen down the pecking order at Bayern. You look at the players that are ahead of him. The likes of Kimmich, Konrad Laimer. They brought in for Leipzig this summer on a free transfer. Falk mentioned, and this is in his own words, and Tuchel's idea is that if they sell him, and Liverpool signalled that they could pay £20 million, Tuchel would get funds perhaps to fund a new holding midfielder. I think the figure you've mentioned, which is 40 to 45, does sound a lot more realistic in my eyes.
Yeah.
I think, obviously we have to bear in mind that he has played, I think it was just over 900 minutes in all competitions, about 550 in the Bundesliga, which is, quite a small amount of minutes, I think, for a player of his quality.
Yeah.
And again, they only just bought him from Ajax last year for about 16 million. As you say, it's still a
I think 33 appearances, I think, overall. And not a substitute,
Absolutely. So I think, 40, 45 would seem to be more. I would be more surprised if we managed to convince Bayern to let him go for £20 million. But hey, credit to Liverpool for at least giving it a go in that regard. Obviously, there's been a bit of a shift in profile in terms of what our recruitment team was looking for. It was thought to be a specialist number 6. We've brought in Wataru Endo, and now we've shifted to what has been described as more of a multi-functional midfielder, which makes sense then when you hear names like Manu Kone of Gladbach and, of course, Ryan Gravenberch, as we've been discussing, of Bayern Munich. Do you think, in terms of what you've seen from him, do you think he ticks that box of being that kind of multifunctional midfielder, someone who could, preferably, I'd imagine, for Klopp, mould into a 6, but also be utilised sort of higher up the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, he can play really anywhere in that midfield area. when he's played for Holland, he tends to get played further forward in the pitch, so he can certainly fit into that. That central midfield role. Playing with next to McAllister and Sablowski. Forgot the pronunciation right, but yeah, I mean, look, certainly he's young and he's fit. I think the most important thing for Liverpool is that they've lost quite a couple of two players who can really get around the pitch. Obviously, their legs will go in, and Milner and Henderson. This guy can really get around the pitch. And I think it's important nowadays that you when you do bring in a player, that they don't just stick into the stereotypical the defensive midfield player or the stereotypical central midfield player. You need to have a midfield player, or Klopp, from what I'm hearing, wants someone who can play all around the midfield. And Ryan Gravenberch can certainly do that. Seen him do it for the Netherlands. They tend to use him a lot there. When he was at Ajax, he was known as someone who was excellent on the ball, could use it, was an excellent passer of the ball. Had his fair amount of assists. Look, I know it's a different league, the Eredivisie to the Premier League, but it does tend that that when Dutch players do tend to hit it off when they come to the Premier League, and as I said, he's very similar to me. He looks like a carbon copy on the ball, and his attributes to someone like a Jurrien Timber who can play in multiple positions. And he's from the Ajax academy, and they're brought up to play anywhere in a certain role. So yeah, for me, he can play anywhere in that midfield.
No, it sounds quite exciting, and well, we also got in touch with Tobi Altschäffl of SportBILD specifically to ask in terms of the comparison between Manu Kone and Ryan Gravenberch in terms of who Liverpool ideally should be going for. It's a short but sweet clip we've got here from Tobi Altschäffl on Manu Kone and the Gravenberch comparisons.
Hey, this is Tobi Altschäffl. I'm happy to be back in Empire of Cop. I'm really sorry that I can't be in person in the podcast because it's a stressful time in Munich with the transfer window, and we had an interview with Harry Kane, your English captain, today. But I'm trying to answer your question regarding Manu Kone and Ryan Gravenberch. Well, you asked me who is more like a multifunctional midfielder, and in my opinion, it's more Manu Kone, who's multifunctional and can play different positions. What is very interesting, after the preseason, Thomas Tuchel was talking about Ryan Gravenberch, and well, he's not thinking of him being a holding six. That's really obvious. But what he said after the preseason was, for him, he's more an offensive player. So he sees him more a number 10, really, than number 6 or number 8, with his biggest strengths in the offense. So I don't think, or I don't know if this profile really fits to what Liverpool is looking for. But on the other hand, I know that Jurgen Klopp is a big fan of Gravenberch. So maybe at the last days of the window, there could be the chance for Liverpool to get Ryan Gravenberch from Bayern, because Bayern needs money to look for maybe a number 6 or a right back and central defender. And the second question was about the fight or struggle at PSG with Liverpool having to get Kone. Well, I can tell you that I had some talks with really high representatives of Mönchengladbach, and it's not Liverpool leading at the moment. So they told me we knew about the interest. We were talking about that before. But it's not like Liverpool is pushing to get Kone. So I don't think the Kone-Liverpool topic is too hot at the moment. But let's wait and see what will happen on the last days of this exciting transfer window.
And we're back on Empire of the Cop Insider. Steve K is still here with us, thankfully, to talk about Ryan Gravenberch, and quite an interesting few thoughts you've given on the player formerly of Ajax, now of Bayern Munich. Potentially could be a Liverpool player this summer. Who knows? We certainly hope. Liverpool, we know, are short in the middle of the park. We could do certainly with at least one more midfielder. Probably only really have time for one midfielder before we then go looking for a young centre-back, which it's quite a difficult profile, of course, that Liverpool are looking for. A left-sided centre-half who is happy to be alternating every now and then again with Virgil van Dijk, maybe, Andy Robertson as well. I think you'd ideally want someone who can sort of do both roles, someone who can sort of more easily slot into that sort of back three when Liverpool do go into that box formation in possession. But back to Gravenberch, Steve, and really that's the final thing. I'm going to put you on the spot. I hate to do it, but I've got to do it. Do you think, in your heart of hearts, that Ryan Gravenberch will be a Liverpool player come the end of the transfer window on September 1st?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? This is where us transfer people, we sort of try and crawl around the answer and end up sitting on the fence after a 10-minute reply back to your question, isn't it? So, but look, from what I've been told, I was quite surprised at the way he was, he was quickly sort of put to one side by quite a few people actually in our industry. But he's always been there for Liverpool. He's always been Liverpool's number one target. He's always been there. He's always been right up there, and that was before Casado. That was before Lavia. I mean, they only went to Lavia because at the time they was told that they couldn't get Gravenberch. It's got to a bit of a desperate situation because it's got to close to the end of the window, and in the end they've gone back to Bayern to try and push for to get Gravenberch in. Now, the only other team that's being mentioned is the one that we didn't want to mention, but the one is Manchester United. And what Liverpool have over them is that they've got the money there. They don't have to sell players. They just need to get this guy in. Manchester United at the moment just looks, a club in a little bit of disarray, if you ask me. And they've still got to sell players to bring players in. And on top of that, you must ask yourself, would he get game time at Manchester United? They've just bought Mason Mount. They've got Casemiro. They've got Fernandes in that role. There's a hole waiting for Gravenberch at Liverpool, and he's been quoted. He's in quite a few times been saying, "If I leave, I want to start." I believe this is now, from what we're hearing, the rumblings from Christian Falk, all what I've been told via from people very close to the club, that long-winded answer. I think there's a very good chance that he will sign. All the noises seem to be pointing towards Liverpool at the moment, and him, playing in that central midfield role.
And we'll certainly all be here hoping that you're spot on. I think you pointed to sort of the messy financial situation over in Manchester United. It's comparatively less messy over in Liverpool. Obviously, I think the figure gets thrown around a lot, the £110 million. Some of that was eaten into by Wataru Ender's transfer from Stuttgart. Obviously, it comes down to a lot more than Liverpool going, well, we've got 90 million, let's bring in player one, player two, and go from there. Liverpool aren't just a club to throw money about. They want to throw money about wisely. They want to invest the right figure, and if it's not the right figure for them, they won't go for it, even if it's a player they want. Hopefully, a conclusion can be reached. We've done business with Bayern before. We've done good business with Bayern before. I know there's some mixed views on Thiago Alcantara. I'm personally quite a big fan and will continue to be. But I think there's an opportunity there. And hopefully, given how Tuchel feels about the player, hopefully there's something that the two clubs can work out on before the end of the window. Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Just before we send you off, we'd love to hear, what you're up to for the rest of the window with football transfers, with the transfer exchange show. Obviously, it was something I was thoroughly happy to be part of last season. But to anyone who's not seen the transfer exchange show, do you want to say a few words here about it?
Yeah, as I say, well, I'm doing quite a bit of stuff now with football transfers regarding on the transfer side, and I'm loving every minute of that. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stuff coming up in the next 7 days. We're all working very hard on that. As far as the transfer exchange show goes, we do our podcasts, and we obviously have you on, Farrell, with the Super Six, and that'll be starting soon. So hopefully, people will join in. So, but looking forward to the rest of the window, and also looking forward to the holiday when it's all over. So, but it's been fun. It's been a crazy window. It's been probably the most maddest window I've ever known, probably for quite a few years since I've been in this industry. So, but it's the crazy world we live in, I suppose.
No, I imagine Liverpool certainly haven't done you any favours there with the Caicedo and Lavia saga with Chelsea. But hopefully it can be a bit more of a clean-cut finish from Liverpool in the window. One more midfielder, one more centre-half, and a lot less stress.
I just hope you get Gravenberch for a good price, because probably after what you probably went in with Caicedo for Bayern, I'd probably be thinking, we're going to get as much as we can out of Liverpool maybe on this one. So
I think Liverpool need to take... Not take the loss in that regard, but accept that the original price that they may have been able to negotiate will have been partially affected by the fact that they revealed to the entire world that they have this humongous transfer kitty available. But thankfully, we aren't negotiating with another Premier League side, so that should hopefully work out in our favour when it comes to deciding on a final fee if we reach that point before the end of the window. But yes, I babbled on long enough, Steve. Absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thanks again.
Be sure to catch Steve on Twitter. He's at Steve K9 KS1 TV on Twitter, X. Sorry, I keep making that mistake. It's a hard thing to switch out of. And of course, be sure to watch the weekly show coming up on the Transfer Exchange Show and all your latest bits on football transfers, some absolutely lovely bits on Liverpool Football Club there for everyone to enjoy. This has been Empire of the Kop Insider. I've been Farrell Keeling. Thanks for watching. Be sure to give us a like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, and of course you can check out on our Substack at empireofthekop.com.substack.